Good morning. Good morning. Let's pray. Lord, we do ask for your presence here this morning. We pray that you would guide us and teach us. Pray each one of us would take something away from our service today. We ask in Christ's name. Amen. All right, we're going to continue with our series on circle dwelling and circle dwelling communication. Just a brief review on circle dwelling first. Circle dwelling is treating a person as a collaborator, not a competitor. So these are the people in our lives that are close to us, that we interact in a vital way in our lives. This is our friends, our families, the Church of God. All these people, they're in our circle. We say circle because we mean within our realm of concern, our circle of concern, those that are with us and mean something to us and are vital in our lives. They're not strangers. They're people that we are close to. This mic thing is... Is that better? It was making a little bit of noise I heard there. Okay, so this is the circle. These are who are in our circle. So we're supposed to treat those people as collaborators, not competitors. People that aren't inside our circle are competitors, right? They're strangers. They're people who we are friendly to. We're supposed to be friendly to the stranger, but we're not sharing our resources with them. There's a competition, in the best sense of that word, with other people. We negotiate, we deal with them in a different way than our friends and family. So what we're actually talking about during this part of our series is circle dwelling communication. How do you talk to those people that are in your circle? And that's what I want to just review briefly about. The one thing we said was that you're supposed to keep things truthful. That means that what you say is what you mean. You're avoiding omissions. You're avoiding equivocating. You avoid dissembling. You're honest with others in your circle. You don't overemphasize. You don't use hyperbole. You are simply, laying your cards flat out on the table. You're sincere with one another. Whereas those outside your circle, you're not dishonest with them, but you're not casting your pearls before swine, so to say, is what Christ used that metaphor. You're not letting everyone know your PIN for your bank account. You probably don't let everyone in your circle know that either, but there's private things and familiar things you're not going to share with those outside your circle. But those that are in your circle, we should be honest and not treat them in the same way we're treating those outside our circle, by leading them on, deceiving them, not being frank. Do you see what I'm saying? You have to get used to unknowing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. You're not strategic with those in your circle. You're plain. You're not just trying to say the right thing so that you get a certain outcome. You're just simply honest with them. You're plain. Keeping things clear, that means you do the heavy lifting. You're thinking through how to say, how to present. You're not just letting it all fall on them to decipher and decode your encrypted language. So we talk about summary, subject, summary, detail, and as Gretchen was talking about, we're precise. We try to avoid ambiguities, and we keep things warm. We're positive. We assume good intentions, and we're willing to sacrifice ourselves and change. And as far as technique goes, in talking to those in your circle, we're listening. We're seeking first to understand rather than be understood. We don't listen to respond. We listen to understand. We diagnose before prescribing. We're not just wanting to just give our input. We're actually listening, right? We care about those in our circle. We're not just managing them. We're friendly. We're on the same side. We're trying to have a frank and honest dialogue. So we're not just trying to move the game and say our thing. We're trying to listen and really understand, diagnose before prescribe. We really want to understand what the problem is. And restating is part of listening, meaning that sometimes you have to say to the other person, so you mean X, Y, and Z, or you're saying this, that's a way to listen, because if they say, no, that's not what I'm saying, then you go back to square one and try to rehear what they're saying. We use manners, avoid interruptions, apologize if you accidentally happen. It does happen in conversation. Just conversation can be very quick, and there's a lot of activity, and sometimes you step over one another. Just simply apologize. Tell them you're sorry you talked over them, and give each other room there. But the real way of exercising manners in circle-dwelling communication is through nonverbals. Good eye contact, smiling, nodding, facing each other, a non-aggressive posture. And then lastly, symmetry. If they're going fast, you should go fast. If they're going slow, you should go slow. They try to get in parity with one another. Try to form a symmetry. Not just, they're really anxious and you're just deadpan. That's not being together in the circle. But there's also verbal symmetry. In other words, they say something interesting, you affirm it. With words like or interjections. That's right. Or oh, that's interesting. There's a verbal symmetry there. So that's the review of what we went over so far. The objectives, what you're after in circle-dwelling communication, and how to do it. So now we're going to look at some examples. We went over these before. They were various areas where we just gave some sample phrases you can use. And so we're going to go back over those, but talk about the principles. So problem solving. You're in a situation with someone in your circle, and you're trying to solve a problem. Here's some example phrases you can use. What might be causing this situation? Perhaps if we tried solution X, it might help. What do you think? I wonder, is there any other way to think about this problem? I don't know if you noticed, but all three of these phrases are questions, which gives you a clue of how to approach the situation when you're problem solving, rather than just stating your opinion, right? So what are the principles for problem solving? The first one is that the objective is to construct a common opinion. We're trying to, excuse me, let me just grab this here. So, 1 second, I lost my. So we're trying to construct a common opinion. That means that when you're solving this problem, you want everyone to own the problem and own the solution. It should be a common solution. It's two people or more that are in the circle trying to solve this problem. You want it to be a consensus, that we own this, we own the solution here. So that's the objective you're working for in solving a problem is what is the solution that we agree on, that we have come to as a common opinion, rather than finding whose opinion is going to prevail. Right? That's in a non-circle dwelling situation. Your opinion versus my opinion. There's a line, and you're making your argument and I'm making my argument. Whose opinion is going to prevail? In circle dwelling, it's a little different. People have different opinions, but you're working towards a common end. And so you're trying to come to a place where it's our solution, not whose solution wins. Perhaps someone in the circle's opinion will be the final one that we all agree on, but it's no longer theirs. It's ours now. So I was in this meeting one time where this didn't go the right way. So there was a problem, and there was a large group of us, and we were trying to solve it together. And we went through this very detailed, lengthy process of narrowing down the options, and then we came up with something like 3 points, and it was quite long. And then the person who was leading the meeting pulled out a paper. He had a stack of papers, and he passed them out, and they were those 3 points. And it just felt like you were just playing a game. And the decision was already made, and they just led you to the decision. That's the wrong way. The right way is that we actually don't know the end at the beginning. That's this unknowing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We are going to come up with this together, and we're going to try to construct this common solution. So, secondly, with problem solving in the circle, you want to utilize the creativity and brain power of everyone to create a synergistic solution. So, this is in contrast to going to the highest bidder. Who's the most persuasive? Who's got the most charisma presenting their problem, their solution to the problem? It's going to go to that person. That's not what we're going for. It's not going to the highest bidder, the most persuasive or the most charismatic answer. We want to engage everyone's thinking and their brain power, and that might result in an end that we're not quite sure what it is. It's going to be. It's creative. It's open. So this idea of just going to the highest bidder, who's ever most persuasive, that's basically, there's this limited, this finite set of solutions, and it's going to be one of those. But when you're collaborating together in an honest way, in a circle-dwelling way, you don't know what the end's going to be. You don't know. No one knows. It's going to be the result of the creativity and the brain power of each person. And that's different. That feels different. The tone of that kind of meeting is different. But on the same hand, it doesn't have to have everyone's fingerprints on it. It doesn't. The solution at the end doesn't have to have everyone's fingerprints on it. Some kind of egalitarian solution that is the lowest denominator. Not necessarily. It may actually be one person's idea is the one that wins, but it's not. But it now becomes everyone's idea, like I said, and it might be a combination of those. The point is to allow the maximum amount of creativity and intelligence to be applied, but you're doing this in a spirit of unknowing. And what I mean by that is that you're setting aside your prejudices. We don't know everything. That's just a fact. No one goes into a problem solving conversation knowing what the answer is going to be. So you have to set aside your prejudices. Just admit that. The past doesn't necessarily mean that the future will be the same. You may have had success in past solutions like this, past problems like this, but that doesn't mean it's going to apply in this one. So let the ideas live. Let people's suggestions live. You can shoot them down prematurely. That's bad. You'll take the life out of people if you just shoot it down right away. Let it live. Someone shares an idea, even if it sounds absurd or we'll never do that, or you're jumping to the cost of that solution too quickly, that will suck the air out of the room and de-spirit the person who did it. No, let it live. You don't know. It may not be the exact right answer, but it's going to contribute to a good answer at some point, or at least show you what you don't want to do. But let it live. And then think out of the box. Learn to cultivate an open mind. with all possibilities on the table. Have a healthy dose of 60s freedom. You don't have to go full hippie, but don't be afraid to color outside the lines in your thinking. Well, we can't do that. You don't start with "we can't." That's bad. When you're trying to solve a problem, you don't start with, "Well, we obviously aren't going to do that." Well, sometimes that's not obvious. Don't worry. We're not going to go full hippie. We're not going to violate God's law or the laws of man or God. You may misunderstand what the laws of God or man are, though. Sometimes our thinking on that is too narrow. I'm not saying situational ethics or justifying wrong. I'm not saying anything like that. But what I'm trying to say is allow the creativity to flow. Don't shoot something down too quick. Put all the options on the table, then start sorting them out. So those are the principles of problem solving. That's why you see these phrases. They're saying, what might be causing this situation? See, it's open. It's unknowing, right? Perhaps if we try a solution X, it might help. Perhaps. It might. We don't know. We're testing. We're putting out. We're testing. We're thinking about it. Or I wonder if there's another way to think about this problem. Again, that's this open mind, this thinking out of the box. Part of the problem might be that our paradigm is wrong, the way we're thinking about this. Let people's ideas live. Let there be a spirit of freedom. If it helps you to put on a tie-dye shirt or something while you're doing this, then go ahead and do that. I mean, get hippie. Get some 60s freedom in there. Allow the creativity to flow. Don't worry, we're not going to drive off the cliff. But let the ideas live, and you may find that your paradigm was wrong. Einstein famously said, the thinking that got us into this problem is not sufficient to get us out of it. So sometimes you have to change what you're thinking about. So when you're in the circle with people, there has to be the spirit of freedom to solve these problems, and these are some of the principles involved in that. All right, in a membership or committee meeting, some sample phrases. Do you think we need more information? Again, these are questions. I like that suggestion. Perhaps if we also did X, it would make it even better. See that building upon? That's interesting. Why do you think so? See, it's a spirit of unknowing. You're giving them feedback, though. You're saying, that was interesting what you're saying. Why? Give me more. You see this kind of dialogue going on? So the principles for in a committee meeting or a membership meeting are very similar to the problem solving. That practicing unknowing, the letting ideas live, trying to construct something together, all that is the same. But it's a little bit different in that you're not just solving a problem when you're in a committee meeting or a membership meeting, you're building a life and a culture together. That's a little bit different. So the participation of the meeting is more important than just solving the problems. In other words, in a members meeting or a committee meeting, agreement is more important than good solutions. Because you're in this problem together. You're in this. Committee meetings or membership meetings aren't about just solving problems. There's something else that's going on in those kind of meetings. There's a camaraderie being built. There's a commonness being built. There's a common ownership of something that's being discussed and talked about. So the agreement is more important than the actual solutions. You're learning about one another. You're discovering each other's uniquenesses. That's a feature, not a bug. In other words, some people, they come into meetings, committee meetings or membership meetings, and they want to get things moving. They want to move along. And someone's talking about, how they feel about something, and they're like, that's a waste of time. But it isn't a waste of time, because the objective in those kind of meetings isn't just like problem solving, where you have to get to a solution. The actual process is important. The building of the culture and the life together is important. So the focus should be on participation. And that means you can't just be an observer in these kind of meetings. In other words, you can't be a voyeur in a committee or a membership meeting. You know what a voyeur is? It's a peeping Tom. It's a prying observer who is usually seeking the sordid or the scandalous. So you can't be in a members meeting or a committee meeting and be just in the corner of the room observing everyone, right? So you have to participate. That's what the point of the meeting is. So your nonverbals are very important to demonstrate that you're giving crucial that you're crucially involved in this meeting. You're giving feedback. It doesn't look like you're not going to know what I'm thinking. Whatever your nonverbals, your posture, your head nodding, smiling, interjections, all affirm that you're part of this meeting, right? So, and of course it means you have to speak. Sometimes nonverbals are not enough. You actually have to say something. And you can tell that when you can feel in the meeting that it's unclear where you might be standing in the meeting, what's your stand. In that case, it behooves you as someone who maybe is quieter to say something, to make a statement. So speaking, sharing is a way to commit yourself to the group and take your stand with them. Also, listening. Everyone must keep up with the dialogue. You can't drop out mentally. You have to stay up with what's going on. You need to sharpen your listening skills. Listen to understand rather than respond. Hear other people's nonverbals. Listening to other people's nonverbals is a skill, because when people are saying things, it's not just their words, it's also how they're saying it. And that may communicate to you the emotion, the import, the meaning in a fuller way. So you have to really stay in the game here and listen. All right, let's talk about responding to a request. So some sample phrases, sure, I'd be happy to. Or, I had other plans, but can we make it another time? No, thank you. Thanks for asking me, though. So you see, these are circle-dwelling kind of phrases, because you're allowing the person to know what you think about what they said. If you had other plans, you let them know, but you're trying to use your creativity to figure out if there's another way to solve it. And if it absolutely can't be solved, you can't participate, or you can't meet this request, then you tell them, but you're happy that they had asked you, even though you can't respond to it. So what are the principles? First point is to jump on every chance to meet a request. So circle dwelling is about bonds of affection. Requests are golden opportunities to strengthen those bonds. So when someone asks you something, boy, that's a golden opportunity. Remember, when people make a request, they're making themselves vulnerable to you. And expressing, not just making themselves vulnerable, but they're expressing that you're valuable because they're in need of you. If you treat that dispassionately or simply technically, can I or can I not to meet your request, you miss something. You miss building the relationship. So be responsive. Prioritize their requests. When people make a request, if it's a golden opportunity, prioritize it. how I value your requests, how I value your interests, show how much I value you. So that means be timely. Practically speaking, that means you got 24 hours to answer an email. Someone sends you an email that obviously they're looking for a response. You got 24 hours. After that, there's an automatic deposit, automatic withdrawal set up in the bank account for every hour after that. Ding, 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 ding. Ding. So, be creative. Try to make it work. Make the experience pleasant. Make it easy for them to make another request of you in the future. Now, see, that seems opposite. Maybe what for people outside your circle, you don't want to be bothered all the time with requests because you have your own concerns. Doesn't mean you're indifferent to other people or that you're a mean person or curmudgeon. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, those that are in your circle, it should be a high priority, and us depending on one another and making requests and receiving from one another. The fact of that, the act of that, is building the relationship, building the bonds in the circle. So try to make it work. Make it pleasant. Make it easy for them to do it again. By the way, I'm just talking about good customer service, right? So you can use that paradigm. In your circle, have good customer service, right? So it's primarily about fellowship and mutuality. Avoid a simple technical approach to the request. It's bigger than that. Better to not meet the request and have the relationship strengthened than meet the request but leave a bad taste in the relationship. You see what I'm saying on that? You can meet someone's request, but they walk away not happy about it because you begrudgingly did it, or you let them know that you're suffering because of it, or all kinds of ways. You make it difficult for them to clarify their request, and you make them spell out every last detail, and it becomes onerous to them. And then you finally capitulate and do it for them. Better you to say, I can't do it, but I'd love to do it. Can we think about another time? Or, I sure appreciate you asking me, even though that's not going to work out for me. Better that the relationship is built and the request isn't met than meeting the request and leaving a bad taste. If you can't meet the request, at least show that the relationship means something to you. All right, let's talk about conflict. So here's some sample phrases. What you said bothered me. Can we talk about it? I know you don't mean to be hurtful, but that does hurt me. Or after someone apologizes to you. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate you, and I'm glad for our friendship. So again, you can see the tone of those phrases are to build the relationship. They're to strengthen the bonds of those in your circle. So what are some of the principles? Aim for honesty and truth-telling. Conflict is and should be a time when we become more honest and truthful with those in our circle. In fact, that's one of the purposes of conflict. One of the purposes of conflict often happens because there isn't this frankness going on at some level. And the clashing of swords, so to say, in conflict is really the motivation to become more real with one another. And so aim for honesty and truth-telling. Real intimacy requires honesty. You're just not going to have intimacy with people that you are keeping secrets from, that you're trying to manipulate, that you're only giving half-truths to, that as Betty was sharing today, you're fearful, so you're not being honest. It's going to be difficult to have intimacy with a person like that. If circle dwelling is about anything, it's about being honest and truthful, therefore intimate and affectionate with those in the circle. Assume good intentions. Most conflicts are misunderstandings or different perspectives or different priorities. They're rarely not malicious or about malice. So just assume good intentions, even when you're having a conflict. Assume head, not heart. In other words, it's a problem of understanding, not a problem of motives. Assume the other persons are working towards and are committed to a good resolution. So when you get into a conflict, you can, if you approach it that way, one is just say, hey, this is good because there's going to be more honesty. Also, I assume the other person wants good too. So this is something we're going to work out that's going to turn into something good. But if you enter a conflict with they're being evil again, that's not going to go well. Not with those in your circle. You're on the same side, right? Assume good intentions. So let conflict be productive. Recognize that disturbance is where the Holy Spirit is working, as Gretchen said today. Look forward to greater honesty and clarity that can come from conflict, and follow some simple guidelines. Don't raise your voice. Don't go silent. Don't give up. And what I mean by that is don't put it off to later. Deal with it as soon as you can. The Bible says don't let the sun go down on your anger. Rule we teach couples in premarital counseling is that you should never go to bed angry or go to bed with an unresolved conflict. So don't give up. Sometimes giving up looks like, I can't deal with this right now. That's called giving up. Well, no, I'm going to deal with it later. All right, sure, I get that. Yeah, you're going to deal with it later. Sorry, the mic is doing this thing. You have to do it right away. Prioritize it. Admit faults readily. Pretend you're them making an argument against yourself. See, that's the opposite of conflict in non-circles often, is that you don't ever admit your faults, right? No, you're on the same side. This is circle dwelling. If you have something wrong, then that's the common knowledge that you both have. Bring it out. Admit your faults quickly, readily. Remember, the problem isn't the person. People aren't the problem. It's the behavior or the thinking. It's not the person. If the person's the problem, it's over with, right? Because they can't change. Avoid bringing up the past. And this is what they say about conflicts and misunderstandings. You should never bring up the past when you're having a fight. And I think that's in general correct, but I don't think it's an absolute. Because sometimes you have to connect the dots. See, this is happening again. I'm just saying you have to be careful about that. And generally don't do it, but sometimes it's necessary to bring clarity. Lace your discussions with affirmation. Don't be legal. What I mean by that is someone has to say, you didn't say, I forgive you, or it's got to be completely fair. And, you admitted something, I admitted something, and now it's completely fair. That's not the point. The point is this legal balance. The point is the bonds of a relationship are strengthened. And then get third-party help rather than let the thing go unresolved. If you can't resolve it, especially married couples, if you can't resolve it, get some third-party help. Couples tend to not want to do that. That's why in premarital, we try to cultivate in premarital this getting used to speaking with third-party, your pastor, your small group leader, to get help in your relationship. Lisa and I've had to do it. Even years after years of being in leadership, we've had to go and get others to help us because sometimes you reach an impasse and you can't just allow that thing to stay there. You have to resolve it. And if you don't have the resources together, then you have to find somebody who can help you. All right, I'd like to now just talk a little bit about the role of anger. All right. We're going to talk about anger. All right, the first thing I want to say about anger is what Dallas Willard says. Everything that can be done with anger can be done better without it. I think that is very true. Every time I've been angry, mostly true. Every time I've been angry, there's a lot of times I should say a lot of times I can look back, and I think you can too, that when you were angry, you wish you didn't do it that way. It could have been handled better. But it's not absolutely true. I don't think it's 100% true all the time, especially if the relationship isn't deep or strong enough to bear anger, then you definitely shouldn't use anger. That said, anger is sometimes important to convey the importance of something to the other person, and we'll talk about that. So what is anger? Anger is a strong emotion. Dictionary definition is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. It doesn't necessarily have to be hostility, but it's a strong feeling, right? And emotions are simply physiological reactions to a thought. That's it. So they actually call it the arousal syndrome. Your heart increases its beatings, your blood pressure goes up, you may sweat, you might your muscles tense, all these kind of things. Emotions, and anger is an emotion, are simply how your body reacts to some thought. So that's what it is. How should you relate to it? Well, I would say this first off, anger, since anger is a physiological reaction, it's the bodily expression of a person's attitude. So when people are being angry, you're seeing what they think in their body. So it's kind of like a window into their mind. And so we're talking about the domain of intimacy here. When someone's angry, they're throwing open the door to their interior life. And so that has to be treated in a certain way. So firstly, it goes without saying, if you feel threatened or you feel like something violent is about to happen, you should get to safety. But anger is a glimpse into a person's inner life. It's not necessarily aggression or violence, but it is often an expression of pain. So best thing you can do when someone's angry is to hear them out. Take it seriously. Reflect back what they're saying. Like I said, they've thrown open the door to their inner life. You are seeing what they think or what they value expressed in their body. That's pretty intimate. Hear them out. Take it seriously. Try to understand. This is the important part. Don't try to answer it. If you want to put like oil on it, that's going to exacerbate. Because anger is like usually a cry of pain and a cry for understanding. So hear them out, take it seriously. So how should you express anger? Well, like Dallas Willard's quote says, it's fire. It should be treated that way. Everything that can be done with anger can be done better without it. So it's obviously something dangerous. So treat it like that. It's fire. But there are occasions where anger is appropriate. In those cases, just say why you're angry. Say I am angry, and this is why I'm angry. Be a little dispassionate about your anger. So you're going to tell the other person, look, I'm angry. This is why I'm angry. I want you to know that I want to resolve this problem, and I'm committed to our relationship. See, that's normal. See, we tend to think that anger is 100% always wrong. It's not always wrong. It's just dangerous. It's powerful. It's hard to handle. But it's not necessarily wrong, and the Bible never says that. The Bible says, be angry and don't sin. So the best thing to do when you're angry is just to admit it, explain why, reassure the other person that you want to solve this thing and that you're committed to the relationship. Right? So I want to show you an example of anger. No, it was just this is from the movie Clear and Present Danger. This is one of those in the Jack Ryan series. As Harrison Ford stars as Jack Ryan. So Jack Ryan is back, and this time the bad guys are in his own government. When Admiral James Greer becomes sick, James Earl Jones, by the way. When James Greer becomes sick with cancer, Ryan is appointed acting CIA Deputy Director of Intelligence. Almost before he can draw a breath in his new position, one of the president's closest friends and his family are murdered in their sleep by what appears to be drug cartels. Ryan is called to investigate, but unknown to him, the CIA has already sent a secretive field operative to lead an illegal paramilitary force in Colombia against the cartels, which the president orders. Things get even more complicated when his team is set up and he loses an agent in the field and a friend of his wife's, who was the murdered agent's secretary, and is murdered that same day. Ryan must then risk not only his career but his life to expose the truth behind the mystery. This is from IMDb. It's written by someone called Cindy Mack. So anyways, this is an example of someone expressing anger and it being a good thing.
Jack, I'm glad you're here. Sit down. Can I get you anything? No. Come on, sit down. I would prefer to stand, sir. Some things have gone on here that I'm just becoming aware of. I was kept in the dark, as you were, for a very long time. Troubling things. Yeah. And now we have to sort them out. We have to figure out who was responsible for what to do about it. And we have to do this very delicately, otherwise people might get the wrong idea. We have to lie. Did I say that? upset.
I'm upset.
Well, it's understandable. You mind if I give you a bit of advice? Of course, you know this because you're a smart guy. You should never make important decisions while you're upset.
You did. And American soldiers and innocent civilians are dead because of it.
I never ordered
No,
any...
don't even think about playing that game with me. I will not let you dishonor their memories by pretending you had nothing to do with it.
How dare you come in here and lecture me?
How dare you, sir?
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I am the President of the United States.
It gives me no pleasure to do it, sir. As Acting Deputy Director of Intelligence, it is my duty to report this matter to the Senate Oversight Committee.
You're not going to do that?
I'm not.
No. You've got yourself a chip in the big game now. You're going to tuck that away. You are going to save that for a time when your own ass is on the line. And then you're going to pull it out. And I'm going to cash it in for you. Right?
I don't think I have anything more to say to you, sir.
The country can't afford another scandal, Jack. To protect itself, it won't allow the possibility of another deception that goes all the way to the top. You'll take the blame. Cutter and Ritter will take some too, but it won't amount to much. They'll get a slap on the wrist. And then $20,000 an hour on the lecture circuit. The rest of the blame will fall on Greer. Oh, yeah, you'll take him down with you. You'll destroy his reputation. But that's as far as it'll go. The old Potomac two-step, Jack.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I don't dance.
All right. There we go. Well, there's a couple things to recognize. One is Ryan is visibly angered, and he admits it. He tells the president why he is angry, but he remains respectful. He's still submissive, and he's committed to the president and the chain of command. However, he's rebuking, which is completely appropriate in this situation. It gives him no pleasure to rebuke. It's not to get even or make the president suffer. He's going to go resolve the problem by reporting to the Senate Oversight Committee. So the idea that anger is always wrong is not right. There is a place for anger, and that place is when we have to express the gravity of the situation or the importance of something to ourselves. You can do it in a right way, primarily by stating it, stating why, stating that you're committed to resolve the problem and you're committed to the other person. You're committed to the relationship. But what people are afraid of when you're angry is that you're abandoning the relationship or that you're going to become malicious. That's not true. If you're not angry about things, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with your value system. So anger has a place. The Bible says, like I alluded to in Ephesians 4, that it says, be angry and yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. So resolve it. Bring it to resolution. Because if you don't, you're going to give the devil an opportunity. Right? So I want to read this is from Dr. William Backus about anger. He says, however, of all the misunderstandings and myths we may have believed about anger, perhaps the most damaging for Christians has been the prevalent misbelief that anger is a sin. Without a doubt, uncontrolled anger may result in sinful behavior, such as verbal or physical abuse. However, anger per se is not sinful. Anger and wrath, a word used frequently in the Old Testament to mean anger, account for more than 400 verses in the Bible, both to describe a righteous God and human emotions. If anger were a sin, I seriously doubt that God would allow the scriptures to characterize him as angry and a wrathful God. Anger is a normal emotion, a natural part of being human. Anger need not hurt, damage, or destroy. It need not ruin relationships. And one thing is certain, we will not stop having angry feelings no matter how we handle our anger. Anger is an emotion, no more, no less. Like any emotion, anger can be constructive or it can be destructive. Anger can occur for good reasons or for bad, justly or unjustly, rightly or wrongly. Just as babies must learn to control their thumbs to pick up a Cheerio or a cracker, and toddlers must learn to use their thumbs to hold a crayon, so we must learn to control our anger in order to use this powerful emotion constructively. There are some resources on all these things I've talked about. The two that we talk about often is Telling Each Other the Truth by Backus and Learning to Tell Myself the Truth. He has a section in that 6-week guide where he actually coaches you how to manage your anger. And it's excellent, but it doesn't work if you read it. It only works if you follow the exercises and actually do them. So that's all I have to say today. Next part we'll go into some other areas, instruction, giving encouragement and things like that, exhortation. Anyways, we'll maybe take some questions or comments right now.
I like the insight of anger being about being vulnerable. I never thought of it in that way. Yeah, it's just helpful to, try to think about treading civically, so like expressing anger, rather than just worrying about defending yourself against that oncoming wrath or whatever, but to see it as an opportunity for more intimacy and trying to understand this.
Yeah, like Dr. Backus says, it's the biggest misunderstanding we have is that it's a sin. So if we have that, we're going to be violating things all the time. We're going to be breaking things. We're not going to be disclosing ourselves to one another. I'm not saying go out, go therefore and be angry as much. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that anger has a role. It's a dangerous role. You have to be very careful with it, but it's important. It's to learn how to hear someone who's angry and how to actually express anger in a way that's constructive. Any other comments, questions about anything we've talked about? Not just the anger, but good, Ginger?
I think that when you said earlier that conflict was something that helps us to look to see what needed to be changed, what God needed to be worked. Anger is the same thing. If you catch it before you're out of control, it causes you to look at what you're believing and where you might need to make a change or where you might need to do something different. So it's the same kind of thing that anger can be beneficial.
Well, I would say this, and you might not be saying this, but I would say anger isn't an absolute, it's not an indication you're thinking wrongly. No. It may mean the other person is thinking wrongly.
But it does tell you that before you act, you need to think about what you need to do with that. In other words, the anger is the indication that you need to think about how you're going to respond.
That's right, sure. Absolutely.
Whether your thinking is wrong or whether your thinking is right, you need to stop at that point in time and look at what's going on around you.
That's right. I mean, that's what Dr. Backus says. Uncontrolled anger. Anger should be controlled. That doesn't mean it's not forceful. And I think the best way of controlling it is to just say off the bat, I'm angry. This is why. I want to resolve this. And I'm committed to this. I'm not cashing in my chips here. I don't want anyone hurt, but I want to resolve this, and it's important, and I think we should. I think when people express anger like that, you start to see the import of what they're thinking. It's not take them more seriously. I don't think you have to use anger. Like Willard said, most things, almost everything that can be done in anger can be done better without it. But that doesn't mean it never applies. Mike?
I haven't always facilitated. I haven't always run a circle group effectively. I remember once I was facilitating a small group out of our church in South Philly, and I don't remember what the discussion was. There were about 6 or 8 people together, and this one guy got up and he went off on a track, completely opposite what the rest of the group was expecting to hear. And he just kept going off and off and off. And I could see that the people around me were looking at me with the look of, Mike, what do you think? Do something for me. And finally, I just told the guy, sit down and shut up. So there were a few moments of silence without any emotion. And the guy got up and he told his wife, you'll find me out where I parked our car. So we left the meeting and went out. I felt really discouraged that I had messed the thing up totally. But then a short while later, he was hospitalized with an illness. And I felt the urge to go and see him. I visited him. We had a real cordial conversation. The past was never brought up. And subsequently, I visited the church on another occasion, and we had a nice congenial conversation. So I praise the Lord for His grace in resolving that.
What do you think you could have done differently?
I could have tried to engage him, trying to, express to him. I could see that he had a vivid interest in this other subject, but it was really interrupting the flow of the conversation. We could talk about it after the group had dispersed.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, you could have just told him, let's just say his name was Bill. You could say, Bill, that's great. But we want to give other people an opportunity to speak. Would you please sit down now? And if you want to follow that up later after the meeting, I'll be happy to follow that up with you. But we got to give other people an opportunity. Now that said, okay, hindsight is 20/20. Vision is 20/20. It's easy to look back. As, Monday morning quarterbacking. But it does help to have an ideal in mind of how to aim at these things. So yeah, so I think this is what I think sometimes causes us to have outbursts like that with people, is because we're not used to speaking honestly with people. So we almost sometimes we don't think it's right to speak honestly with people. And so it's pushed to a breaking point, and then we just let it loose. It's better that we just learn to speak honestly and just say, okay, we've heard you, that's fine, well, I want to keep talking. Well, then I would take it up another notch at that point. I would say, I'm asking you to sit down. Please behave yourself in this meeting. Well, I'm not going to do it. You can leave now. I'd like you to leave.
That's what happened.
So, but you see that it's progressive. But I think sometimes we go to the hammer too quickly because we're not used to just speaking honestly. But thank you for sharing that example. It's a good one. I have 1,000 like that, so I hear you. But I want to say one other thing about that, though. But the second part of what your story was that it made him open to you, and that's my point. Also, is that sometimes anger, when people are angry, you're dealing much more frankly with them. And I think probably maybe, and I'm just, Monday morning quarterbacking, he saw something genuine in you by you expressing that angrily, and it opened him up to you. I remember as a kid, if I got into a fight with somebody after a long time, then we became best friends. You know what I mean? Because there was this kind of vulnerability that happened. You know, and I think that's probably the case in this, unless, you know, I might not see it the whole thing, but it wasn't a deal breaker because he saw something genuine in you. You know, and so that's actually, it reinforces the idea that sometimes anger can be very useful and good. Jared?
I was thinking the responding to a request. I really like that point of with those in our circle, making sure that we're giving expression when there's an invitation of some sort,
That's
some
right.
form that's being.
That's not just a request. There's
Right.
something else going on
Yeah,
there.
it's much. There's much more to that, and giving voice to your appreciation for that, even though if for whatever reason it can't work out. But keeping that in the back of your, like, not just that's valuable. You weren't able to meet that request for whatever number of reasons, but
But you're glad the request was made.
yeah, and now I'm aware. I'm taking stock of that. It's not like just it's not light in one regard. I'm actually going to remember that. That's a value to. It's something to remember. I don't know how else to describe it.
So what are you saying? I'm sorry.
It's kind of like if someone requests time with me, for example, but I can't, because they requested that, and I told them I appreciate that. I'm now mindful that I want to. They attempted the deposit. I want to be mindful that I want to revisit that warmth, either myself or revisit it with them down the road. I don't want to just leave it
Right.
as an
You're not treating it as just a technical thing that was, you know, handled, dismissed.
Right, exactly.
There's something. There's a human thing going. There's a circle thing going on
I
there.
want to revisit that because that was an opportunity. So it's a golden opportunity. It's not just an opportunity. It's a golden.
Yeah, I think so.
And
When someone is vulnerable enough to ask you for something, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Even something that seems, in one regard, I remember as a young Christian, it kind of struck me when people would ask for being covered just for cleanup. It could be something that seems trivial, but it isn't, because there's small ways that we're thinking of one another. In that, if I'm thinking of coverage, for example, that's a deposit in the relationship. They're saying, hey, I think you would actually follow through with something. You're trustworthy at this, in this thing.
That's right.
You would come through for me in my moment.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and that's helpful in our own self-talk because it helps to build that relationship, even when it's not a direct, hey, I really appreciate you, brother. You're asking me to cover. It's made manifest. So that point of not necessarily being legal, but being able to read it as, that is what's actually happening.
That's right.
So it may happen in a very common, mundane kind of way. But I like your point on the conflict. One of the challenges I've noticed is when it's messy or complex, is not fatiguing under that, and
Right. You just have to stay in the game.
stay in it.
Yeah.
I find
Don't quit.
that's probably one of the biggest challenges I've seen is because it can be emotionally draining and it can be mentally draining. Staying in that process, or if you're not able to finish it fully, but you've nailed a chunk of it, being able to actually be clear that you're going to continue working through it. So you're still in the circle. It may be delayed for a moment, but you're actually, it's not like, I'm just going to deal with it later. No, you're really, truly.
That's right. That's right.
But I also like that point that you bring up is when it's complex or challenging, when it's on a bigger level, the affirmation in the midst is helpful. And it helps even calm yourself down a little bit when you're agitated. You know, the truth is, I'm for you, brother. I'm really kind of ticked off right now, but we're going to work it out.
Yeah.
You know, because that happens. Sometimes you get hot under the
People
collar.
think anger is aggression towards them.
Right.
It's not necessarily hostility or aggression towards them. You just got to realize that. Usually, people that even go off, they're not they're crying out in pain, or they're striving to be understood. They're not necessarily wanting to hurt somebody. Now, there are people who are angry and violent and they want to hurt you, and if you're in that situation, get out. Go to safety. Get in safety, whatever the case is. But generally speaking, don't take it personally.
Yeah.
They're actually disclosing themselves to you. And that's fine. If you handle it calmly back, what does it say? A soft answer turns away wrath, right? But if you get angry from their anger, that's a formula for, you know what I mean? That's the formula, yeah. No. That's the first time I presented this material, so it feels a little rough. But anyways, I hope it's helpful. Yeah. Josh?
I appreciate the point too about not sitting on anything that would be a form of disturbance in the conflict until complete resolution, because I've felt the temptation to, I'm not sure what's going on, but so then I'll just, you almost like you've reached a certain level of resolution, but there's still something else, you're not sure what it is, and so you think, I'll just figure it out later.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had to come to the point where it's like, you know what, I something feels weird about this. I have no idea, and I want to keep going because something still hits odd.
And how you can do that is just by saying, like Lisa was saying this morning, I feel funny still. And you're not saying the other person still didn't do what they're supposed to do. You're just saying I feel funny. And it could be just you're worn out or you're sick or you're getting that cold that just went around. But nonetheless, you're just being open and vulnerable, because that's the truth-telling is the key thing in the circle. I kind of interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's because I've also thought too that, it's maybe because I'm also kicking back at what the person's saying and I need to change, or maybe there is another part. So yeah.
And maybe that's true. Maybe you are, but the only way to get that clear would be to talk it out. Yeah, that's good. I would say this too about the resolution thing. Again, like Dallas Willard, everything is done with anger generally can be done without it. I would say you should always try to resolve and don't walk away without resolution. That's generally always true. There are situations where you don't have the knowledge enough to resolve it. That's not a great solution, but it's a reality sometimes. Don't try to go for that. And I'm not saying we agree to disagree. That's not good. I don't think that's an option for Christians, to say we agree to disagree. No, that means that I'm not committed to you. I have to agree with you. We have to be in unity. So, but what I'm saying is, there could be an ongoing issue that isn't being solved. You get it resolved pretty good, but it's going to come up again. Because there's some lack of knowledge there. Don't aim for that, but sometimes that does happen. Yeah. Anything else? All right, well, let's stand.